Welcome to the BNB Investing Podcast for real estate investors, fix and flippers, and realtors exploring investment options with Airbnbs and short-term rentals through acquisition, leasing, or management to generate consistent monthly revenue. Join us for a chat with experienced and successful short-term rental investors to hear their story of how they got started and created wealth by building scalable businesses. We also explore various service providers and lenders that help make our businesses more efficient and maximize revenue in this awesome sharing economy. Welcome your host, Rich Munroe.
Hey everyone, Rich Munroe here. Thanks for jumping on this week's Facebook Live. I just wanted to kind of give you guys a quick update. I know that we had planned to have Frank on here from hopefully, but he's actually been sick, and so we are going to reschedule the Hostfully review for another time. But in the meantime, I did want to kind of give you guys a quick overview, and thought it would be a good opportunity to basically go over the rental arbitrage model with those folks that are not that familiar with it. And so I'd love to be able to kind of go over that with everybody. And so let me just get us shared into the main Facebook group. This has been a little bit of a hassle now that Facebook no longer allows you to directly post into a Facebook group. This is a recent change just last week with third-party providers. And so I've got to kind of go through a little bit of a different loophole and post to our Facebook page and then post to the Facebook group. And so if you're out there, if you could just give me a yes or a thumbs up in the chat that you can hear me okay. I just wanted to make sure that we have everything connected properly here before I kind of jump in. I do see a few people that have jumped on. Just want to make absolutely certain that everybody can hear me okay. If you could put a yes in the chat, that would be perfect. All right, I got a thumbs up there. So, and I think the last time I had a little bit of a delay, and so I wanted to make sure there was no delay as well. And so if you could confirm that for me with a yes in the chat or another thumbs up, that would be awesome. But like I mentioned, so BNB Investing Group, for those of you that are fairly new to it, you know, we help investors look at the different rental options for short-term rentals. And, you know, rental arbitrage is definitely one of those models that you can grow a business and scale quickly. And that's actually how I got started in the beginning, even though I was already rehabbing properties and had long-term rentals. We utilized the rental arbitrage strategy to grow in the beginning. And so it's a good way to really kind of get started and do that. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time today on reviewing what that looks like. And so let me also kind of add in here as well. I've got a couple of slides here prepared. And again, just for those of you that that don't know me that well, you know, I am with BNB Investing Group. I am with a real estate company based here in Atlanta, Georgia, and we started out with, you know, basically doing tax lien property investing. And so I had bought about 350 properties through tax liens and kind of gravitated from that into doing fix and flips. And so the tax lien option is definitely a good one to get into, albeit it is a little bit of a slower model in terms of a slow burn, right? So you buy the tax lien in Georgia, you have to wait 12 months in order for that lien to be perfected. And you basically are able to kind of take over the property after that 12 months, going through a quiet title action. So it's kind of a slow burn, but learned kind of the worst case scenario with properties through doing that. We sold most of those properties to investors and basically started keeping some of them for our long-term rental portfolio. And so also did about 49 fix and flips, and love that business, albeit it's a little bit stressful when you don't have a specific date when your income is going to come in. And so I kind of got burnt out from basically the financial stress of rehabbing the property, getting it fixed up, having headaches along the way, a delay in the process, and then all of a sudden you get the property listed and it doesn't sell right away. And so didn't really take on too well to that fix and flip model. It's great money, but didn't really like the financial stress and kind of the management of the contractors as a process. And so in 2015, I looked at the short-term rental model, and basically, and I'll dig into some details here on the rental arbitrage model, but we had long-term rental properties. We converted some of those. We also sold anything that really didn't fit, and made a conscious decision back in 2015 to only do short-term rentals. And so we've been doing that consistently with the rental arbitrage model, with the acquisitions model. We still buy distressed properties today and fix them up and do short-term rentals. And then we also manage properties for other investors, which is another great way to grow this business. And so you can earn up to 25% by managing properties for other investors. 2020, I also became an Airbnb ambassador and a community leader for Airbnb. What that means is I'm tied into some corporate announcements, and there's a part of the platform where I can work directly with Airbnb hosts and help them with their listings, get them set up in the beginning to make sure that they're maximizing revenue. And so being here in Atlanta, there's been, some short-term rental ordinance rules. And so we formed the Atlanta Metro Short-Term Rental Alliance to work with the city of Atlanta on potentially redoing what the current ordinance is, which we're currently in the process of doing. It started out with a primary residency component, and we're kind of looking at trying to get it rewritten at the moment to be more investor friendly. A little over a year ago, started B&B Investing Group, and that's where we've formed training and consulting and coaching for investors that want to learn about the short-term rental model. And so wanted to kind of give you an overview of the rental arbitrage or the master lease strategy. Most people that hear about this may hear about it from folks that have tried it in an apartment complex or somewhere where they're doing it without the authorization of the landlord. Every single master lease that we do, it's actually written in the lease that they approve of us doing short-term rentals. They clearly understand that I'm not the one staying at the property. We are basically authorized to change and put electronic locks on the property. We can name the landlord as additional assured. There's certain short-term rental policies that you can get if landlords are concerned about additional liability. And then this is kind of super important. We also put in our lease addendum that we have an out or we're able to give a 30 or 60-day notice in the event there's some major changes like Atlanta with regulation changes as an example. I don't want to be tied to a 24 or 36-month lease and I'm not able to do short-term rentals. And so it's crystal clear in all of our leases that gives us that out. Another big one I'd like to include in there is that I actually prefer to handle any of the lower level maintenance issues. So if the toilet clogs, if the AC goes out, of course, the landlord is still responsible for any major repairs. But, in the short-term rental model, if my guest is there for 3 days, I don't want to wait on the landlord to send their contractor out there to fix a problem. I'd rather have my maintenance folks go out there. So I actually write it in the lease for the landlord to give us that approval. That ultimately gives you full control. And obviously, if it's a major issue, you can then get them involved at that point. Now, this is an example of one of the properties that we started at when we first got started. This is one of our very first units. And it was kind of a lesson learned. this is in Midtown Atlanta, across from City Winery, Ponce City Market, for those of you familiar with the area. And this building has actually got a condo association. These are all one-bedroom lofts in a great location. And when we engaged with the landlord at the time, there were a lot of different other folks that were doing Airbnb and short-term rentals in this building, even though it's a condo association. They didn't have anything in the rules preventing it. And so we basically engaged with a 24-month lease. I put my protections in there like we just outlined before, where I could have an out of the lease if there was some reason that I'm prevented from doing so. So long story short, we got the unit set up. After about 3 months, we get a letter from the landlord, actually got a letter from the condo association saying they are no longer allowing short-term rentals or Airbnbs to be done in the building. And so we basically shut that down, moved the furniture into another unit. And so I strongly recommend when you guys are looking at opportunities to do this, to stay away from any buildings that have owner associations or condo associations. If they do not restrict it today, townhouses as well are pretty common to have homeowner associations. If they don't restrict short-term rentals today, there's definitely a risk they can do that in the future. There's plenty of other properties out there. It's just not worth the risk to do that. And so, so obviously we understood, we kind of, from that point forward, only focused on properties that are kind of, most of the time, individually owned, smaller type buildings that aren't necessarily larger complexes. Although you can get this done in those, but we found a sweet spot where kind of the smaller properties and mid-sized properties fit better for the master lease strategy, right? And so, although it doesn't look like it, this property is a four-unit quadplex, all one-bedroom units. And so we started on the top left apartment there with a one-bedroom master lease, a rental arbitrage agreement with the owner for 24 months. And what you'll find with this model, it happens time over and over again, is it's kind of once that landlord understands the benefits of working with you over their long-term tenants, you're doing a corporate lease with them, you're paying the monthly rent on time, you're basically keeping the property in much better shape and condition. You're taking a lot of those headaches, calls that they get about clogged toilets and other things that come up that they get with their other tenants, because we're handling that for them. They're very quickly going to offer other units to you that they either in that same building or the ones that they own in other locations. And so we went from 1 unit in this building to 3 very quickly after the first couple of months. This is actually in Midtown Atlanta as well, near Ponce City Market, near the Beltline, near Piedmont Park, walkable to a lot of restaurants and bars. Our next building that we did, again, this is a 8-unit building. All one-bedroom units, individually owned. The owner of the building actually bought the building just before we engaged with them. And they had 1 unit already up and running as an Airbnb. And they were basically freaking out about not being able to handle the guest communications. And they were just really confused about it. So we immediately took over that unit. It was already fully furnished. So we did a master lease on that 1 unit. Got it situated, generating revenue. And same thing happened here. We have the landlord saying, hey, I've got another unit upstairs. They're about to expire next month. Do you want to take that one on as well? Of course we do. And so we ended up getting another 2 apartments in this 8-unit building within the first 3 or 4 months. And so the same owner of this building actually owns another building kind of around the corner in the same neighborhood. This is also an 8-unit building, and same thing here. We started with 1 unit and ended up doing 3. And so with these first few relationships, when we first got started, we basically went from, having 0 short-term rentals to having basically 9 listings up and running, generating revenue within a 6 to 8 month window. And so for those 9 units on 1 bedrooms, we were netting on average about $1,000 to $1,200. So it's about $10,000 a month in net revenue after expenses, which again is a quick way to kind of get a scalable business up and running, generating revenue. Obviously, there's a cost involved setting up each unit. You know, the average cost to do it right, including electronics and staging and everything, is around $7,000 to $8,000 per apartment, right? So you do have that upfront expense. It usually takes you 6 to 8 months to recoup that initial investment, and then you're kind of off to the races with profit from there. And so you can definitely strategically grow your business and add more units, especially if you've got like a monthly revenue goal in mind. Now, we kind of evolved away from some of those old buildings, and this was a brand new kind of a full gut rehab on a building, also in the same area. And this is a 27-unit building. Same thing here. We started actually with 4 units on this building, and over about 4 or 5 months ended up growing to an additional 9 units for actually ended up having 15 total in this building very quickly. And so these are all 1-bedroom units as well. Nice kind of rooftop with a view of the skyline, and walkable to a lot of the different parks and areas in Atlanta. And so, you know, we have the ability to kind of do this with being able to commingle buildings with long-term and short-term renters. Same thing happened here. The owner of that building actually did another rehab on a quadplex, all 1-bedroom units. So we ended up doing all 4 units there. This is another example. It's a 22-unit building, 2 separate buildings that the owners had just finished doing a full rehab on this, and they had 8 units sitting there empty. And so we were able to come in and basically get within 30 to 45 days, all 8 units fully furnished, up and running, and generating revenue for that owner, and basically being able to convert a very low occupancy into pretty much 0 vacancies. And so here's a little bit of a walkthrough kind of the numbers, just so you can kind of get a brief overview. You know, the top green line there is what your gross rental revenue is. The one on the left is an example of a 1-bedroom. And so the 1-bedrooms, and this is kind of on the high side because some of them are as low as $1,400, but let's say it's $1,600 a month in rent after all of your other expenses, electricity, water, pest control, internet. And, you know, on a 1-bedroom, you know, you're a good one to go after. You're going to be netting around $1,200 to $1,300, which is what this example is showing. If you're anything lower than that, if you're in the $500 to $600 range, the numbers just start to be too tight, and you basically could be stuck with a property where you're basically breaking even. So you usually want to be a little bit north of 1,000 as your conservative estimate. Now, you only have to do this arbitrage model on 1-bedroom apartments. You can do this on larger homes, 3, 4, 5-bedroom homes. And so an example of that is the one on the right. This is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, where the gross rental revenue is around $5,500, and your rent on it's around $2,000, your utilities, electricity, everything. So all in, your monthly expenses are around $3,100, and your gross rental revenue is around, you know, even if it was as low as $4,500, if you're in the $2,000 to $3,000 range on a larger property, same thing there. Obviously, when you stage and set up a property of that size, it's going to be more than a 1-bedroom apartment, and so your staging costs are going to be closer to $25,000 to $30,000 in some cases, maybe higher than that on some of the luxury properties. And so it will take you about the same time, 8 to 10 months, to recoup your initial investment. And then you're basically able to kind of rely on that as your net monthly profit from there. And so this is just some examples of the calendar and kind of how we get to those gross rental numbers. Obviously, it's multiple people that are staying and going. You know, during the busy times in the summer, you can have very close to 100% occupancy, and basically have people coming and going and being able to command that higher gross rental revenue. Now, as I was mentioning, you can do this on, this is a 3-bedroom house. We are also in the Tampa, Florida market. This is a rental arbitrage opportunity as well. And even with a 65% occupancy, a $200 average nightly rate, you're still doing a gross of about $3,400, which is definitely giving enough to cover your rent and your expenses, and enough for profit. The These are properties that don't have to be anywhere special. This is a property that was out in Beaufort, Georgia, the northern suburbs of Atlanta. This is a 5-bedroom home, and not even fully occupied for the month, 71% occupancy at a $300 average nightly rate. And we're doing around $5,700 in gross rental revenue. So like I said, you don't have to do this with just 1-bedroom apartments. This works well and is actually a lot more lucrative with the larger properties. And so just how you approach the owner of an apartment, you can also do the same with your strategy to go after homeowners and do this. Another example, 3-bedroom. This is also in Beaufort, Georgia. And then there's also like specialty properties. This was a 15-acre horse farm with a 5-bedroom home on a hill with a pool. And you can start getting into, north of $10,000 in revenue on properties that have amenities or swimming pools, and definitely can generate a lot more revenue than if you were to do it as a long-term rental. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about something that, when I first started going over this rental arbitrage model opportunity, I mentioned that a lot of you may have heard, people that have kind of done this with large apartment complexes. They've kind of done it under the radar, then they get busted, they get kicked out. It's not really a long-term strategy. And, of course, like I've just covered, we do all of ours with the concept of making sure it's crystal clear in the lease. But I wanted to bring to everybody's attention, which is only helping, I think, the overall model. Airbnb has recently rolled out what they're calling the Airbnb friendly apartments. And this is something not only in the Atlanta area, but in major cities across the United States, where they're basically partnering with large apartment complexes and basically giving the tenants that stay there the option to put their apartment on Airbnb when they're either traveling or if they are spending the weekend with a girlfriend or a boyfriend and they want to generate additional revenue. And so I think apartment complexes have, obviously with the increased rents, have recognized the challenges with higher rents. And this allows them to be more competitive because if you have a tenant that ordinarily may not be able to afford that monthly rent, but if they can layer in the Airbnb strategy and, call it, certain times during the year, be able to generate additional revenue, then it's an opportunity for them to have a larger audience to different tenants. And so, when you look at this, this also can give us an idea of different apartment complexes that are clearly knowledgeable of the short-term rental model and may be more susceptible to us being able to do a master lease with them as well. Now, I want to be clear, this particular program that Airbnb has on their website now is not necessarily for investors. So it doesn't really fit us going in and doing a long-term lease for the purposes of doing short-term rentals. But it does open the door for them to be more comfortable with this process. And so, like I mentioned, this is more geared to the individual tenant, and the way that they're structuring it is they basically give a revenue share to the building, and they basically do like a management of those rentals for the tenant. And they only allow you to do it a certain number of nights during the year, right? So this particular building only lets them do it for 90 nights per year. So it doesn't make sense for us to go sign a 24-month lease if we can only generate revenue with short-term rentals for 90 nights per year. But it does make sense for somebody that wants to live there and that be their primary residence, and then they have the option to generate more revenue and supplement their income by renting out their home when they're not there. And so just wanted to update everybody that I think this does nothing but kind of help exposure for this as a more acceptable model. And, a lot of the larger apartment complexes are starting to recognize that this is an opportunity that they should be looking at. This is all of the different apartments in the Atlanta area, basically, that have this as an Airbnb friendly apartment. And so, as you can tell, it's kind of, all over in terms of popularity. And it's not only in Atlanta, there's a lot of other major cities that are doing the same program. And I think, again, it just kind of opens up that model to be more acceptable, where in the past, a lot of the larger complex kind of frowned upon folks that were doing short-term rentals in the large apartment buildings. So just wanted to update everybody on that aspect of it, which I think it's interesting. And I wanted to kind of walk you through strategically what we do in our business and a part of our program as well. Obviously, short-term rentals are a lot more intense compared to long-term rental, and it's all about your basically your hospitality and your reviews. And so this is an example of a property that we had in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Nowhere special. It wasn't in Buckhead or anywhere like that. Although it had a very nice pool in the backyard, outdoor kitchen, movie room. But what we do strategically when we go into a market and we start with a listing, the average nightly rate in this area was $350 a night. And so what we do over time, we got 24 consistent 5-star reviews on this property that usually should command about $350 a night in nightly revenue. But as we started gaining traction with these good reviews, you can start commanding a premium for your nightly rate. And so we basically went from $350 a night over 6 months to commanding about $1,000 a night as a nightly rate. And even though we're not, this is just an example of 1 month, even though we're not fully full, because we're charging $1,000 as an average per night, basically in 1 month on that 4-bedroom home, we're doing about $15,000 in rental revenue. And so this is definitely like a strategy that you should be employing. This is what we kind of teach in our program, basically to have that be the core focus. And then that's what allows you to basically command a higher price. Here's another one of our properties up on Lake Lanier. This was one that we purchased and rehabbed, and the nightly rate on this will be around $1,200 during peak season, and average about $20,000 to $25,000 a month in gross rental revenue. This is another lake house as well on Lake Lanier, and that'll also do about $25,000 to $30,000 a month in gross rental revenue. So there's also different higher end properties that you can do this with that generate a lot more revenue. Now, not necessarily, these types of properties may not necessarily be well suited for rental arbitrage, but if you end up learning this model, you can basically manage other folks' properties and earn 25% of that $20,000 a month in revenue, and creates another revenue stream for you. And so, like I was saying, this represents some of Diamond Edge's, our company's historical performance on the average nightly rate. It's the blue line compared to the red line, which is the average market price. And so we always look to kind of exceed what that is. This is the occupancy rate for all of the properties during that time period that we either owned or managed or operated. And again, the objective here is to basically perform what the average market is doing. This is another year here. Same thing with occupancy. And so everything that we do is around maximizing revenue, maximizing occupancy. And, if anyone is interested in learning more about, how you can kind of do a deep dive, if you want to scale a business to do this, I put the QR code up there to schedule a 15-minute strategy call. I can kind of do a strategy call with you to find out what you're currently doing in real estate, and see if this model is something that might be good to basically strategically start generating monthly revenue, and be able to kind of employ this as a strategy as a part of your real estate business. And so I would love to chat with you if you want to schedule a call. You can also reach out to me on Facebook Messenger. I had mentioned earlier, this was originally planned for a full demo on one of the channel manager platforms. We are going to reschedule that for another Thursday. But I did want to take this time to kind of give you guys an overview of the rental arbitrage model and be able to answer any questions. So we do have a few more minutes left. If there are any questions, if you want to put that out on the comments, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. All right. So once again, thank you so much, everybody, for jumping on this week. I definitely look forward to working with some of you on, being able to get this strategy up and running. And, feel free, like I mentioned, to reach out if you guys are having any questions about short-term rentals. You need help running a market analysis. You need some guidance with what's going on with the regulatory environment for rules and ordinances and regulations. Feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to help and be a resource. So thanks again, everybody, for jumping on BNB Investing Group, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you.
Thanks for jumping on the BNB Investing Podcast this week. Please click on the subscribe and like button below. For more trainings, property tours, and content, you can join my BNB Investing Facebook group by clicking below. If you are ready to grow your short-term rental portfolio and maximize your monthly income, you can click on the link below to schedule a quick strategy call with Rich or someone from his team to see how we can help or point you in the right direction. Stay tuned for our next episode and hope to see you on the BNB Investing Group podcast.